Every day, we are losing our railroad history. Museums are underfunded. Trail advocates are trying to eradicate active railroads and museums. Old equipment is disappearing as being hauled off to the scrapyard. So let's check out some abandoned trains before they're gone. Alright guys, it's a new year, it's time for some new house cleaning. I removed the last video I did because I realized it doesn't really align with the goals of this channel. What the heck are the goals of this channel? I never spelled that out, so let's talk about those. There's 3 goals to this channel. One of them is obvious education and detective work documenting abandoned trains before they're inevitably scrapped and gone or collapse in on themselves. The second goal is talking about the lack of preservation funding and hopefully funding that through having this channel monetized. And the third goal is a new one, and that is documenting and talking a little bit about the literal war against tourist train operators and regular railroads and museums. So you could get the vibe from that in the new sizzle reel introduction that I did. So when you look at these goals, you can see that we've accomplished the detective work around documenting some abandoned trains. We haven't really talked enough about preservation funding, and we haven't earned anything for preservation funding. I'll talk about that in a second. And a new goal we obviously haven't even touched upon yet. The second goal being fundraising, we haven't come close to that. Yes, this channel's monetized, but it literally earns nothing. The only video that earned any kind of payout was the ones that were 9/11 related. Those always get a huge amount of traffic. And for that, I wrote a donation check to the Firefighter Family Foundation. I talked about that in a previous video. So the goal was for each video that was oriented to a topic to provide a social good, to fund some kind of nonprofit. And when it comes to the rail preservation stuff, that hasn't happened because Google only pays out when you make $100 in ad revenue. That might be months or years from now at this rate. Yeah, let's do the math here. So we have 21 videos on this channel, and let's multiply that by, say, 20 hours on average to edit and research these videos. So we've got 420 hours invested in this channel, minimum. And then we multiply that by the minimum wage for the Northeast, which is generally around $16 an hour. Some place $17, some place it's like $14.42. It really depends on the state. That brings us to $6,720 that I have invested into this channel in labor, minimum wage labor, that I am definitely not seeing a return on. Let's just say I've made zero money off of any train videos on this channel, period. I've lost money doing this, and this had me come to this like coming to Jesus moment. In the past, I have volunteered for nonprofit organizations, and I've had a significantly better impact using my skills. That, I would argue, would be a much better use of my time than producing videos on this channel. So I will be producing less videos on this channel, and I will be changing some of the content if I do go forward at all. It's really sad. I thought this channel would have more engagement, but it hasn't. The simple reality in life is that we only have so many hours, weeks, days, and years on this planet, and you probably want to use them as productively and helpfully as possible if you're anything like me. Get to the bulk of the video, and that is talking about these abandoned train cars in the woods that have been talking about forever, this set of boxcars, and I want to show you how to figure out the history of an abandoned train in the woods. First, assess the property. Is it in any way restricted? You can see me driving up here. I pull over by the side of the road. I've got these 2 old boxcars in Highland, New York. They're just sitting by the side of the road. There's no trespass sign. There's no fencing. There's nothing to say that you can't go there. So I get out of the car. I see someone across the road. I say, hey, is this your property? He says, no, I think it belongs to the state. I don't know who owns it. No one's ever over there. Now, if someone came and said, hey, you can't be here, that's happened to me once or twice out of hundreds of times exploring and doing photography work. I'm just like, all right, cool, let me get out of here then. I will happily leave if you say that I'm not supposed to be here, because it's hard for me to do the creative photography work that I'm trying to accomplish when I go to these places. It kills the vibe, and I really want to be able to concentrate. So I walk up to these cars, and we know what they are. They're 2 boxcars. One of them says Southern Pacific. The other says Maine Central. Both railroads that are long gone from mergers. And it's pretty clear what they are, but we don't know why. Why are they here? And why is there a Southern Pacific boxcar abandoned in New York State? Often when you see a railroad boxcar somewhere, if it's near the Northeast Corridor, you could presume it's like a Penn Central car or Pennsylvania Railroad car. If it's somewhere in New England, you can assume it's a BAR car or a Boston, Maine car. So to go a little further into the what, you will often find a railroad name on the car, and you will find a number. And the number is pretty easily Googleable. You will be able to find out when the car was built, what order it was from. There's a scattering of information around the internet, but usually if you want to know more about that particular car, you can find it. There's no road number, you can often look at the trucks on a car because often on them the initials of the railroad will be engraved. So that could be a really good hint as to the history of the car. So now we want to know, why are they here? And that's where it gets really interesting. So your first job is to look at the actual rail vehicle in question. In this case, we have damage on one end of the Southern Pacific car, and the main central car is literally cut in half. These are signs that there was some involvement in an accident. Also, the fact that it's a Southern Pacific car in New York State, that's very uncommon. So now we know that something bad happened here. But when did this accident happen? There's a few clues on these cars if you know where to look. First, does the car have a Kartrak tag? If it's a very old car, it probably has a Kartrak tag, and that can tell you a little bit of the time frame of when that rail car was active. A second clue is, does it have a roof walk? If it has a roof walk, again, roof walks were banned at a certain point, so if it has no roof walk, you know it was in service after that date. And before that date, if it has a roof walk, then you've got a good time frame to work with here. You've also got the build date, which is also just a good indicator of when the rail car was built. But next to it is an even more interesting and better clue, and that is the reweight date. That's a mouthful. So back in 1965, the reweighing of cars had to happen every 48 months. That regulation was changed later on, but now we know that we've got from 1965, the date on the side of the car, to 1967. Given this set of variables, the combination of all these factors, we can presume these cars were in an accident sometime between these 2 years. But where? Now, can we find this piece of information? We know nearby there is the old New Haven Maybrook line. So that line was in service at the time. Today it is currently a trail. At the time, it was a rail line. So we can assume maybe the accident occurred on the New Haven line. So to try to find out, I looked in like the New York Times archive. So I looked in there, I didn't find anything, which was a little bit surprising. My next move was to contact different local historic societies. There were 2 that I contacted. One of them referred me to the other one didn't reply. That became a dead end. And then I started thinking, well, is there a bigger city nearby? And then there's Poughkeepsie, which is a relatively good-sized city. Did they have a robust newspaper at the time? Yes, they did. Did they have an online archive? Yes, they do. Is it very accessible? Not really. You got to pay a subscription for it. And like I said, this channel's making no money. So how much do I really want this information? If I want to know for sure, I could dig through this archive. I might be able to find it. And it might take me anywhere from 1 to 60 hours to find it reading through this whole archive. I've done research work my entire life. I know that you could get the answer quick if you're lucky. You might not get it at all. Does that sound like a good investment of my time? No! My last trick was to make a post on a New Haven Railroad historic forum, and there, thankfully, a user was able to point out that there was an accident in Poughkeepsie in this time frame. My assumption is that these 2 cars came from that accident. I cannot validate that, so I am not standing by that. That's just my absolute best guess of when these train cars got damaged. Now, if I had to create a story here, if I had to do a best guess, and I could be totally wrong, was that these cars were brought here for storage for a municipal project, a municipal water project, because nearby we've got concrete pipes and pieces sitting around that are very badly decayed. So this probably happened long ago, and I'm assuming it's a municipal property because it's still there. The real estate value of just letting that sit there on the tax books for decades, it's got to be owned by the government. That's my best guess. Also, you've got the fact that there's the trail on the Maybrook line that is just over the embankment. You've also got the old alignment for the Maybrook line, which passed through this property. I could be entirely wrong. If I'm wrong and you somehow know, if you've got like property records for this town that I wasn't able to find, I would love to know. Even get to mention some of the complications of researching this one. Nearby, there is part of an old tanker car sitting on the old embankment for the Maybrook line. It's literally just the center part of a car. It's barely recognizable except for one tiny little hint I found on it that says that it was a former GATX car. Why it's there, I don't know. Was it part of the same accident? I have no idea. Were parts of it used for a drain pipe somewhere? That seems a little more likely. There's a reason these cars were brought here. I just don't know what, I don't know when, I don't know why. And to add to it even further, nearby there's a caboose that it turned out that this caboose is just a nice display caboose. It had absolutely nothing to do with whatever accident that these cars were in. So there you go, a real life case study in researching a set of boxcars out in the woods. You can see how involved it can get and how time consuming it can get, and why all of these videos take way more time than I have to put into them anymore. So what are your tips and tricks? Do you have things that I didn't cover? Because I'm always curious to learn about this, and there's no like workshop, there's no college classes for this, at least not that I know of. So if you've got tips and tricks or books that I should check out, like old history books, things that can help you identify old rail equipment, yeah, definitely comment below or send me an email. If you want to keep up with what's going on in this channel and all of the various things I'm working on, go to the profile in the link. There's a link to a website with a newsletter. That's where you'll get an update every month. I don't know when the next video on this channel is going to be, if there's even going to be one. So you can also subscribe and you'll find out if and when that happens. Otherwise, I hope you all be well, go do something great today, and try to have a positive impact on the world. Enough of my preaching. Let's get out of here. Go, go.